It was a quiet afternoon in the small neighborhood, where laughter and the rustle of leaves painted a picture of peace. Inside the garden of a modest family home, a baby had just learned the joy of crawling beyond the safety of the porch. His tiny hands slapped against the ground as he explored every inch. His eyes wide with wonder at the world waiting before him, the parents watched from a distance, smiling, thinking it was just another ordinary moment. But then, the baby paused, his head tilted curiously toward an old cement wall at the far end of the garden. From behind the cracks came a faint, muffled sound, like a whimper, a cry that no one else seemed to notice. The baby, too young to understand fear, reached out his hand toward the wall, patting it as though he had found a hidden friend at first. The parents thought their baby was simply fascinated by the wall, as children often are with ordinary things. But then they heard it too, a faint, muffled bark breaking through the cracks. Their smiles vanished, replaced by furrowed brows and uneasy glances. The mother stepped closer, clutching her baby gently to her chest, her heart pounding. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. The father pressed his ear against the cement, and there it was again, a weak, desperate whimper echoing from inside. Neighbors, drawn by the commotion, began to gather. Murmurs spread quickly. How could a dog be inside a wall? Some shook their heads in disbelief, while others leaned in closer, straining to hear the sound for themselves. The baby, still too innocent to understand, reached out again, giggling as though he had just discovered a secret playmate. But for the adults, shock and urgency settled in. Within minutes, the quiet street turned into a scene of urgency. Neighbors rushed forward with tools, hammers, crowbars, even a rusted shovel from someone's shed. The parents held their baby tightly, their hearts racing as the muffled barks grew weaker. Like the sound of fading hope trapped inside stone, the father struck the wall first, dust rising in small clouds that stung the air. The noise startled the baby, but he clapped his hands with excitement, unaware of the danger, his innocent laughter echoing against the desperate cries of the dog. Every strike against the wall felt like a race against time. "Faster," someone urged. "He's losing strength." Each blow made the whimpers clearer, sharper, pulling at the emotions of everyone standing there. Still, fear gnawed at them. What if they were too late? What if the wall collapsed the wrong way? Yet no one stopped. The baby pointed and babbled toward the sound, as if guiding them. The urgency was no longer just about saving an animal. It was about answering the innocent call of a child who had unknowingly become the hero of this unfolding rescue. The pounding grew louder, each strike sending fragments of cement tumbling to the ground. Dust filled the air, clinging to clothes, hair, and the worried expressions of those gathered. The baby squirmed in his mother's arms, squealing with delight every time another piece of stone crumbled away. To him, it was a game, but to everyone else, it was a fight against time. Finally, a small opening appeared. A hush fell over the crowd as a patch of matted fur peeked through the crack. Gasps rippled through the neighbors. "It's real? There's a dog in there," someone whispered, their voice trembling with disbelief. The father redoubled his efforts, his arms aching but relentless. Piece by piece, the wall surrendered. Then, from inside, two frightened eyes blinked against the light. The German shepherd, caked in dust and exhaustion, pushed his nose forward, sniffing desperately at the air of freedom. Tears welled in the eyes of those watching. The baby reached out a tiny hand toward the crack, his innocent giggle breaking the silence. At that moment, everyone realized they weren't just breaking down a wall of cement. They were breaking through the barrier between despair and hope. With one final push, the rescuers cleared enough space to pull the German shepherd free. Gasps and cries of relief filled the air as the poor animal collapsed onto the ground, his thin frame trembling from exhaustion. His fur was matted with dust and dried cement, his ribs visible beneath his skin. The dog lifted his head weakly, eyes darting around in confusion, until they landed on the baby. The child wriggled in his mother's arms, reaching out with a curious giggle. Against all odds, the German shepherd found the strength to crawl forward and press his dry nose against the baby's tiny fingers. The crowd fell silent. Some wiped away tears, others turned their faces to hide their emotions. In that instant, it wasn't just a rescue. It was a moment of connection, An innocent child and a broken animal recognizing each other's hearts. As the German shepherd lay safely outside the wall, questions began swirling among the neighbors. How could a dog end up sealed inside a structure meant to stand solid for years? Some whispered that perhaps the wall had been repaired recently, and the poor animal had been trapped during construction. Others suspected something darker. Was he abandoned there on purpose? The father shook his head, unable to imagine such cruelty. The mother hugged the baby closer, whispering a silent prayer of thanks that they had found him in time. The baby, oblivious to the chatter, stretched his hand toward the dog again, his eyes sparkling with innocent trust, and strangely, the shepherd seemed to calm under the baby's touch. The growls, the fear, the trembling, everything softened. It was as if the child's presence carried a message. No matter how the dog had ended up there, he wasn't alone anymore. Realizing the shepherd's fragile state, the neighbors acted quickly. Someone rushed to bring water, while another dialed the local vet. The dog lapped weakly at the bowl, his body trembling as though every sip took all his strength. The baby whimpered when the animal was gently lifted onto a makeshift stretcher, his tiny hands reaching out as if not wanting to let his new friend go. To the veterinary clinic. Urgency filled the room. The vet examined the dog, his face growing serious as he checked the animal's heartbeat and dehydration levels. "He's been trapped for days," he muttered. "It's a miracle he survived." The parents tried to calm their baby, who cried until he could see the dog again. And when the shepherd lifted his head, meeting the child's gaze with tired but trusting eyes, the vet shook his head in wonder. "This dog wants to live." The next day, the family returned to the clinic, their baby clapping excitedly the moment he saw the German shepherd again. The once weak dog now stood on wobbly legs, his eyes brighter though still weary. As soon as the baby was carried closer, the shepherd's tail began to wag, a slow, uncertain rhythm that grew stronger with every step. The vet smiled warmly. "He remembers you," he said. The mother lowered her baby gently, and the child crawled forward without hesitation. The dog lowered himself instantly, pressing his head carefully into the baby's lap, as though he understood the tiny human had saved his life. The room grew quiet. Some of the staff wiped tears from their eyes, moved by the bond forming before them. For the family, it was no longer a question of ownership, it was destiny. From that moment, the shepherd belonged with them. As days turned into weeks, the German shepherd settled into his new home. He gained strength quickly, his once dull eyes now glowing with life. The baby and the dog became inseparable. Wherever the child crawled, the shepherd followed, keeping a watchful eye. It was as if the dog had taken on the role of protector, bound by a debt only he seemed to understand. Neighbors who had once gathered in fear now visited just to see the unlikely pair. From cemented in a wall, one neighbor whispered, to cemented in their hearts. The word spread, touching everyone who heard the story. Late one evening, as the baby slept peacefully, the shepherd lay beside the crib, his chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. The family realized then that this was more than rescue. It was fate. A baby had saved a dog's life, and in return, the dog had become family.